My name's Scott Fromey and welcome to the Backwoodsman Institute. Well, what I'm working on here now is I'm making myself a hunting quiver. It's just one that I'm going to be using when I'm strictly out hunting deer or turkey or something like that. I'm going to kind of custom make it to wear it in a way that my style of hunting. So I spent a lot of time on the ground, so I pretty well got a pretty good feel of how I want my quiver to be, and how I want to carry it. Now what is a quiver? Well, a quiver is just anything that you're going to store or carry or transport your arrows in. That can be anything. And there is gobs of different types of quivers. There's bow quivers, there's back quivers, there's hip quivers, there's just all kinds of quivers. Every type of quiver has its pros and cons. I have just about every type of quiver there is. When it comes to hunting with a bow quiver, and the bow quiver is what's actually attached to the bow, it's nice and convenient, the arrows are there, but the con is I don't like the way the bow feels when I shoot it. Kind of throws a little bit out of balance, and so I prefer not to use a bow quiver. Now, there's back quivers, and with a back quiver, in a hunting situation, the fletching is right here, right behind the back of your head, and then when you're moving through the brush, I don't care what you do, for me, I get myself all tangled up with a back quiver. Plus, if you have to make a follow-up shot, you're pulling your arrow out like this, and you're flagging game with it. So that's some of the cons of a back quiver. A hip quiver I use quite often, and I can control the arrows and stuff like when I'm going through brush, but a lot of times they're hanging out behind me, and there's always that one that likes to catch, and a lot of times, next thing you know, you hear it hitting the ground. So one of the types of quivers that I find myself using a lot is this type of quiver, and it's kind of made after what Native American quiver would be. Maybe particular ones that were used in the northern plains or the Great Lakes region is this type of quiver. Now, the way they carried their arrows, you didn't see too many portraits of Indians with, back quivers on, but where they did carry it was over their shoulder like this. And let me put an arrow in here and kind of show you how it's kind of hung off the side, which works great, in a hunting situation, because you can pull your arrows out and not flag too much game. I kind of like it because I can, being it's soft leather, well, this is buckskin, I can actually hold my arrows and work it through the brush as I move through and watch that I'm not catching on anything. So the quiver I'm going to make is going to be made quite similar to this one. The only difference is I'm going to make an adjustable strap. And the reason why I want an adjustable strap is there's times where I want the quiver maybe to hang at my waist, or, so there would have to be quite a lot longer strap to hang it down by my waist, or I can shorten it up a little bit, and wear it like this. Or maybe there might be times when I want to shorten it up a lot more and use it as a back quiver. So, like I said, that the quiver I'm going to make is kind of made after this version, and like I said, this one's made out of buckskin. You can make it out of any type of material, whether it be hard leather or soft leather, or you can make it out of pants legs out of an old pair of jeans, canvas. I do have here, I'm going to make this one out of a piece of scrap wool blanket. So I want to make it out of wool. Now, being that it's going to be soft, this wool blanket is going to be, you know, it won't be be pretty quiet out in the woods, but it's soft. It's like just like this leather is soft. The one thing that you're going to have when you're making a soft type of quiver is some type of stiffener in there that holds it stiff, because if you don't, the actual quiver may bend a little bit, fold up a little bit, and push your arrows out. So what I use a lot of times for my stiffeners in my quivers is either a dowel rod or a stick, or in this case a broken arrow shaft that the end broke off and it's too short to make an arrow out of. So I keep it, and I'm going to use it as a stiffener on the quiver. Now you can put the stiffener on the outside, the inside. It's up to you. Like I said, if you're going to make a quiver, that's your quiver, it's your style of quiver, and it's strictly custom to you. It's what you want. For a hunting type of situation, if I was just making one for looks, I might put the rod on the outside and either decorate it or stain it or make it pretty or use a nice stick or something like that. But I'm afraid that it would maybe catch on to some little twigs and stuff like that if it was tied to the outside. So I'm going to do what I did with this one, is put it into the inside and tie it onto the inside. And actually the straps are tied to the stiffener or the shaft that's in here to kind of add support to it when you're carrying it. So you're not really tearing holes out of the soft leather part of it. You're actually just tying it to the rod, and that's what's holding the whole quiver. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started here. The length of my quiver, I want the length of my quiver actually to come up past the fletching a little bit. On this one it doesn't. It's kind of a little shorter, so I want to use the fletching, the parts of the feathers, to kind of hold it in position while it's laying in the quiver. So in case I do for some bend over and it dumps a little bit, it'll stick a little better with the fletching and help hold itself in there. So this is the length. I'm going to go a little bit longer than the longest arrow I have actually has a broadhead on it, so that's why I'm measuring off of one that has a broadhead. So I'm going to go a little longer, and that's where it's going to end up be about here, which is in this case probably about 30 inches overall once I get done with it. I don't want a very big quiver. For hunting you don't need to carry that many arrows, maybe 3 or 4 arrows. If I'm shooting 4 arrows at a deer and I haven't hit it yet, it's time to go home and try it again another day. So I'm only going to be carrying up to 4 arrows in a quiver. So really about this size, and this is about 6 inches, I would say, give or take. So I'm going to cut this piece of fabric down to 12 inches. That way, by the time I do my seam and everything, I'll lose about a ½ inch or so with the seam. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down, measure it off, and cut it down and get it laid out here. Okay, here's what I got here. I got this piece of blanket material. This is going to be my main body of my quiver. And then I was able to cut a few pieces here that I'm going to actually use for my strapping. Now you can use whatever you want to for your strapping. You can use actually the same material that you cut it off. You can use an old belt. You can probably use, I got some old webbing that is laying around I was thinking about using, but I think I'm going to go ahead and use just regular old wool blanket material for my strapping. Now as far as the buckle goes, this strap or contraption here came off actually an old sea bag or duffel bag, and I kind of saved it, and I'm going to take this buckle off of here, and that's what I'm going to use as a buckle. So I got a buckle. I got an old arrow shafting for my stiffener, and I got some artificial sinew. Here's my needles in here that I store in this thing here. I'm going to sew it up with artificial sinew. You can use whatever you want to. Wax nylon thread, whatever. Another item that's useful is if some of this, regular old fabric cement, which is flexible or whatever. You guys that make ghillie suits, you'll know what I'm talking about. Shoe glue or something like that, and that to kind of spot it to hold it in position while you're sewing it. So this, I'm using this, and I do have some 550 cord here that I might use also, depending on if I need to tie up with my dowel rod. So that, I'll go ahead and get started laying it out.